Chapter 8. Jay. "Have you seen this?" Kevin demanded as he practically shoved a newspaper into my face. "What, did somebody get traded?" Steve asked as he reached for the paper. "No, not the sports section. This." I took the paper from his hand. It was today's paper, and he had it folded open to one of the 4 or 5 pages that were devoted to the arrest of the terrorists. I'd read some of the stories. I'd read everything yesterday and watched the entire news on TV, but it seemed like there were no new arrests or anything different to report. The papers and newscasters were just spinning the same story, like they had to report it but had nothing new to report. Like writing an essay when you don't really know what you're talking about. "Look, right here," Kevin said, stabbing the paper with his finger. There was a little sidebar article underneath the picture of 3 people, teenagers. Brown teenagers. The heading said, "Understands why they did it." I scanned down the column of print. It was an interview with some Muslim teenagers. They were saying that they were surprised by the arrests and thought that those people who were arrested were innocent. "Let me read it to you," Kevin said, practically ripping the paper from my hands. "It's right here. Hussein Multar, 17, says, 'I know one of them, and I know that he is a good Muslim and therefore not guilty of the charges. His arrest is a result of persecution of Muslims by the police and government, and he would have been subject to prejudice and inhumane treatment that all Muslims receive at school from whites.'" "Haven't I been saying the same thing?" Steve said. "Those whites are all devils." "Shut up, Steve. As far as he's concerned, you're white too." Steve held his hand up, turned it over slowly, staring at it. "I beg to differ. I'm pretty sure I'm black. Half Swedish black." "You're no different than me or Jay or an albino," Kevin said. He ran his finger down the page, trying to find his place. "Here it is. All non-Muslims are racist, and Muslims are the target of discrimination based on their faith. White students at my school treat the Muslims badly and exclude them from school life. I am not liked or accepted because of my religion." "Maybe he isn't liked because he's a jerk," Steve said. "You got that right," Kevin scowled. "Now get this. I do not believe in bombs, but I understand why it might be necessary to build a bomb or have weapons to defend the faith against the aggression of infidels." Kevin paused. "And here's the kicker. It says right here that this kid goes to Central Secondary School." "He goes to our school?" Steve said. Kevin nodded and his scowl grew. "Bad enough we have a terrorist going to the school without some yahoo defending him and telling the world that it's all our fault." "It's stupid," I agreed, "but there's not much you can do about it." "Oh, yeah? Come with me." Kevin turned and started walking away. Steve fell in behind him. I didn't know what he was going to do, but I knew there would be some action, and I wanted to see it in person instead of hear about it. I trotted down the hall and fell into step beside him. "Where are we going?" "I'm not going to let any sand monkey go around insulting our school," he added loudly. I looked around to see if any sand monkeys had heard him. Nothing. Nobody. No reaction. "Keep in mind, a fight could get you suspended," Steve said. "I'm just going to use my words. Nothing wrong with talking," he said. "All depends on what you're going to say," Steve said. "Not much. I'm just going to tell him to keep his mouth shut." "What are you going to do if he doesn't want to shut up?" Steve asked. "He'll shut up." We steamed through the hall. I knew we were heading to one of 2 places, either the Brown Corridor or Browntown. As we walked, we passed the other guys from the football team. Kevin and Steve invited them to join in. Soon there were 6, then 7, then 10 guys walking together. I was safely sealed off in the center of the pack. That's what it felt like, a pack. With each new addition, it seemed like we were walking faster, that we had more power, more strength. Kids in the hall just flattened themselves against the lockers and got out of our way. It was a rush. What would Hussein say? How would he react when Kevin came up to him and wanted to talk? Would this end up in a brawl between us and a bunch of brown guys? No. When Kevin started talking, it was more likely the kid would wet his pants than fight. Or he might pull out a weapon. That last thought made me hesitate for half a step. They said on the news that they were still looking for more suspects, and this kid did get quoted as saying he understood why people needed to carry weapons. What if he had a knife or a gun? Kevin came to a halt and the line behind stopped. We were standing in the Brown Corridor. There were kids at their lockers or standing in little clusters and talking. At first they didn't notice us. Then little by little the noise level died down and stopped completely. The brown kids all stood there staring at us, or trying hard not to stare. "I'm looking for my good friend Hussein Multar," Kevin yelled out. "I'm hoping he could sign my newspaper." He held it up. "Sort of an autograph." Nobody said anything. "Has anybody seen him today?" Kevin demanded. There was silence. Then Zaina stepped forward. "He's not here," she said. Her voice was calm and clear, and she stared straight at Kevin. I had to hand it to her. If I hadn't been standing with the pack, there was no way I'd be standing up to it. If I were Brown, I would have tried to make myself unseen and unheard. "Do you know where he is?" Kevin snapped. "He didn't come to school today," she said. "Smart move after saying stupid things like this," Kevin said, holding up the newspaper. "If you're going to insult somebody, you should at least have the guts to say it to their face, or at least show up to back up your words. Anybody here have anything they want to say to me?" I thought for a split second that Zaina might say something. I was glad when she didn't. There was complete silence. The few eyes that had been looking our way were all averted, suddenly finding the lockers or floor much more interesting. I couldn't blame them. I wouldn't have wanted to fight Kevin, especially not when he was standing at the front of what looked like a mob. I want everybody to pass on to good old Hussein that I'm going to be looking for him when he returns to school. Kevin turned and walked back through the pack. We stepped aside as he passed, and then joined in, letting him lead us away. All right, take a minute to pause and write down some questions that you have at this point, and also part of your summary, and then come on back for the second part of Chapter 8.